Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a video of firsts. This is the first Ibanez guitar I have done a full review of on the channel. This is also the cheapest guitar I have ever reviewed on the channel. For the first time, we're dipping under the £350 price point, and I am extremely excited to see what we can find down there. You are currently listening and hopefully watching me play this Ibanez RGA42, finished in a stunning shade called Blue Lagoon. In selecting this guitar for review, I sat down and thought to myself, if I was just starting out learning and maybe wanted to buy my first guitar or perhaps graduate on from a starter guitar to something slightly better, what would I choose? I am asked this question very often. Now, some of the options that come up at that price point have been reviewed on this channel. So guitars from Harley Benton, guitars from Court, guitars from Schecter. However, the first brand that always pops into my head is Ibanez. Now, why is that? Is it because they offer the best specs, the best looking guitars? It's none of those reasons at all, actually. The reason that I always go to Ibanez first when somebody asks me what a good beginner guitar is playability. Now, Ibanez have always had a legendary reputation for playability. Now, what do people mean when they say playability? Well, it's a kind of an intangible measure of how comfortable is a guitar in the hand, how much work is it to play the thing and get a sound out of it. And when I put myself in the shoes of a beginner, to me, playability is priority number one. Way more of a priority, I think, over specs or the fanciest pickups or the fanciest finishes even and things like that. And so we arrive at today's chilled review of the Ibanez RGA42M, a name that rolls right off the tongue. Now, when you're shopping at the kind of budget end of guitars, you know, let's say around 300 quid or less, you can very easily be drawn into a game of top trumps and buying purely based on spec. I actually think that's a trap that's easy to fall into no matter what price point you're buying at, actually. So on paper, this guitar is really nothing that special. In fact, on paper, it's lagging behind what some of the competition are offering around this price point. The biggest example I can think of to illustrate this is the recent Harley Benton range that I reviewed on the channel. It's slightly more money than this. That guitar was $379. This retails for $329. However, if you were to tally these specs up of both guitars side by side, the Harley Benton would blow this thing out of the water. It has better pickups, it has better nut, it has better material choices on the neck and the frets. So why, may you ask, do I still think this thing should be considered? Well, it comes back to the P word, playability. So we have the usual set of specs you would want for this price. We have a nice 25.5-inch scale. We have a pair of humbucking pickups of Ibanez's own brand. We have the very nice addition of a 5-way selector switch, enabling you to have coil splits on both the bridge and the neck pickups. We also have a stunning veneer top, which is the burst finish that they talk about. And I really like the fact that the headstock is also color-coded in that same burst finish. This is not a feature you usually get at this price point. Normally you just have a black plain headstock. This guitar is manufactured in Indonesia, which straight away will be a plus for some people. Lots of guitars around this price point and even up to the £700 price point are now being manufactured in China. I myself have not really reviewed a bad guitar from China yet. For example, the Epiphonic Stura that I reviewed on this channel was phenomenal. No issues with that guitar at all. However, some people may feel more comfortable with the fact this is made in Indonesia. Now on that note, how is the build quality? Well, it's pretty much as good as you could expect for 329 quid. That is to say, it's perfectly serviceable. There is a complete absence really of attention to detail when you really look at things up close, such as the finish of the binding around the body or the cleanliness of the routing for the pickups. It is rough, it is uneven. This is unfortunately not going to be that work of art guitar that you hang on your wall and just admire from afar. However, everything here that's landed in my hands is perfectly serviceable. There are no issues with the frets, they're not sharp at all. There's no issues with the nut. Really, my only gripes with this guitar from a build quality standpoint are cosmetic, which is good news at this price point. Yes, we have the sad addition of a plastic nut. For some reason, this is not something Ibanez exclusively does on their budget guitars. I've played Ibanez's up to nearly £1,000 that come with plastic nuts. Really, the plastic nut is the biggest thing that lets down this guitar's build quality. I really do have to tune this thing a lot. Just a 5-10 minute noodle on this thing will having me stop to tune it at least once, if not twice. If you do plan to use this guitar to perform in front of people, a big crowd or a small crowd, I really would encourage you to have the nut replaced. It's very easily done. Replace it with anything that isn't plastic. Bone, Graphtec, graphite, tusk, any of those will be an improvement. The only other thing to note on build quality is when this guitar arrived with me, and for those of you who've seen the unboxing video will know, the pickups were way too far away from the strings. This seems to be something that's just done with every guitar out of the factory. The pickups are set fairly low. I guess that's to allow you adjustment room, so by the time you've lowered the action to your preferred height, you then have space to adjust the pickups to your preferred height also. But why do I bring this up as an important point? Well, this guitar, as I mentioned, has Ibanez's own brand budget pickups. The neck pickup in particular was so far from the strings that it was really affecting the sound of this guitar when I unboxed it. It was making an already budget set of pickups sound even more muddy because it was so far away from the strings. Also, when you were using the coil split options, the drop in volume was dramatic. So here is how the pickup started out, and here is where I ended up adjusting it to get a nicer sound and a fuller sound, especially when using those coil splits. The reason I'm emphasizing this is because when you have budget pickups such as these, the strength of the magnets will be quite weak. So pickup height is really going to matter when you have a set of magnets that are not particularly strong. Now, once those adjustments were made, the pickups in this guitar sound perfectly serviceable. That is to say, they sound like budget pickups. The neck pickup sounds a bit on the muddy side, even when you're using the coil split option. The bridge pickup has some pretty chaotic high end in there, more fizz than you would probably want. So in terms of high gain stuff with the bridge pickup, I would encourage you to aggressively high cut to get rid of that fizz as best you can. There's nothing coming out of these pickups that's offensive. However, when you have tried guitars from, for example, Cort and Harley Benton that come with proper EMG pickups in, they do pale in comparison. Now, you may think that's reason enough to dismiss this guitar off your shopping list. However, we haven't got to the best thing about this guitar. This thing is so comfortable to play. Not just in terms of the neck profile, but the thickness of the body is just like non-existent basically. There is a hell of a lot of contouring and shaping that's gone into the body of this guitar. Now, what that means is for you beginners out there, or you guys who are, moving on from a beginner guitar, you're going to find that this thing just sits so comfortably against your body. And due to all those contours and all the work that's gone into thinning out the sides and the rolled edges on the top of this body, this thing sits extremely close to you, whether you're sat down, whether you're stood up. It really is not a case of like there's a chunk of wood and you're looking over the top of it. You sit down, you play this thing, you're looking dead straight on at the fretboard and you can see the front and the sides of it. I said this in my unboxing video and I'm going to say it again. If you'd have put this guitar in my hands and I had a blindfold on, I would have been able to tell it was an Ibanez, because Ibanez do this type of thing, ergonomics, just better than anybody else really. The only company really that comes close in my opinion is Legator, but they are a whole world away price-wise, even their entry-level stuff from this. The neck profile, well, it's advertised as Ibanez's Wizard 3 neck profile, which is pretty thin. You have a Jatoba fingerboard, which just looks identical to Rosewood in my opinion. This does feel a touch thicker than what I'm used to from an Ibanez neck. I'm not sure why that is. However, in my opinion, any beginner or any kind of intermediate player looking to move up from a beginner guitar is really going to have no gripes with this neck. I can't really see how you would have a problem with it. It has that lovely rolled quality to it on the shoulders that just screams Ibanez straight away as soon as you put it in your hand. This really is the type of guitar that once you pick it up, you struggle to put it down, just because the ergonomics and playability are so dead on. So then, the Ibanez RGA42FM. It's a guitar not without its shortcomings. The pickups really are lagging behind most of the competition. The build quality is perfectly serviceable, but it's not going to win any awards for attention to detail. However, the way this thing plays and the way this thing feels in the hand and against your body, for me, it's absolutely a contender purely on that basis. And I think for those of you shopping around for a beginner or intermediate guitar, this should absolutely be on your shortlist, along with all the other offerings that are trying to play the top trumps spec game. I have long held the belief when you're buying anything that specs are only ever half the story, whether it's guitars, electronics, cars, cameras, anything. And this guitar is a perfect illustration of that belief. What do you guys think? Is this a guitar you would consider despite the shortcomings we've mentioned, or would you maybe miss out just on the basis that on paper it doesn't quite stack up against what the competition are currently offering? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please do think about chucking me a subscribe, because it helps me and encourages me to keep making content for you. Better yet, if you're feeling super kind, you can also support me via the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. Until the next video, do take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon.